do?
Parents need to heal too.
Mm.
You know, and they don't want to talk about that. I noticed that because I had, I got a lot of good kids who will take the conversations home.
Sure.
And when the parents get hold of the conversations that I'm having in my class, they kind of like degrade their own children.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want me talking about, hold on, before we even get to what we about to talk about in class, how are you feeling mentally? Where's your heart? What's going on at home?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and parents don't like their kids talking about that stuff in school. But hey, look, I got to be a therapist. I got to be a teacher, counselor.
What's going on, family? Kevin and Jesse here with you guys, the Elitestateofmind podcast. As always, our goal is to listen, learn, and grow. Today, we are joined by Anthony. How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm blessed, man. Blessed to be here.
Blessed to be here. That is great, man. Jesse, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I am doing amazing. Family, make sure you guys like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook page. Make sure you hit that little bell on YouTube so that you're notified every Wednesday as Jesse and I come to you to help you listen, learn, and grow. What we're going to talk about today is Black to School. Everybody's going back to school right now. Yep. But what we want to get into is how does this affect the Black child and the Black educator as well. That is why Anthony is here. Anthony, if you wouldn't mind telling the family a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, my man.
Man, I'm from Los Angeles, California. I came to Oklahoma in the fall of 2007 to attend Lanks University. Graduated in 2012 and decided to stay out here and learn how to become a man. Okay. Upon graduation, I went through post-graduation depression, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of people go through that where you finally get a taste of what reality really is. And I wasn't prepared for it, but, got hired at Douglas, 3 months after. Been on the east side teaching young Black kids since then. So, this is what I love to do. I listened to this Steve Harvey interview one time. He was talking about the difference between your passion and your gift. And I realized, even though I love poetry, love writing, love making films, love doing all those things, that's just my passion. My gift is teaching. So
that's a big thing for you to be able to realize that, because a lot of people don't realize, they don't realize the difference, and then they're not able to operate, in both and give themselves over to both. So now, man, we definitely appreciate the work that you're out here doing, man, and continue to sow your gift and do great things.
Thank you.
The first thing about, Black to School is, what do we feel that the public school system, does, to Black children? Jesse, I'll let you start there, having, been through, that yourself. And then you go through it on the other side. What do you feel it does to Black children?
Man, it's go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
You got it. And I don't, man. It gets deep, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like this is gonna get deep, man. It's gonna step on some toes. Because we're gonna get into some real truths, man. If we really get into, the structure of society. So what is it going to do to Black children? It's going to make sure that this from public school to prison pipeline is still in place, right? Because the reality is, this is no knock on any educator anywhere, but we're just talking about the system of public school. And so the system in and of itself is not really teaching our children what it means to be educated, right? Our curriculums really need to be overhauled, right? That's true. Like I spent a couple of years, U.S. Grant and Star Spencer, right? It needs to be overhauled, because education, as we know, as you go through university, you understand that education is more than just what's in these particular books. It's the beginning point. That's the point of beginning for education. Right. So education is ongoing, it's lifelong, right? So if you get introduced to knowledge, it's your job to pursue the education. Right. So that's one of the things that public school is actually lacking, right? It's teaching our children how to be conditioned to the bell, right? Which is the same thing that happens in prison. You're conditioned to the buzz. Right. Right? Someone has to tell you where to go, when to do it, when to eat. Get in line. All of that, versus being a free thinker, right? Our children need to be encouraged to be free thinkers, because that's their heritage. True. Right? Free thinking. So that to me is that point. Anthony, what you think?
Man, on top of that, man, because you speaking some facts. On top of that, I feel like the education system is doing what it was designed to do. Mm-hmm. You know, when you look at the history, those early schools, Yale, Harvard, Princeton, all those early schools, you know, their majors was about slavery. You know, they was, you know, that the way their schools was set up was to continue slavery. You know, when you graduated from those schools in the early days, you received a degree and you received a slave. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So when slavery ended, quote unquote, when slavery ended, J.D. Rockefeller looked around and was like, you know what? I'm going to turn the whole nation into slaves. They're going to be taught how to work and not how to think. That's when they took away the thinking. You know what I'm saying? So now, for a black kid to go to any school outside of a predominantly black school, you know, that's like suicide. It's slow suicide. You know, I think about the high school that I graduated from back in L.A. Like, I remember my 10th grade AP class, history class. And I was just, you know, it was Black History Month. We've been learning presidents and, you know, white generals, all this stuff all year. I'm like, okay, finally he's going to teach some black stuff. February 3rd I'm like, hey, man, it's been 3 days. You going to teach some black history? And he looked at me like, oh, you been defiant. You got to get out. Kick me out the class. Yeah. So I was like, oh. That was my first rude awakening towards education. Like, hold on, what happened to our history? How come they don't talk about it?
It's supposed to be our turn this month.
Like, you'll learn about Helen Keller before you learn about Fred Hampton. You'd be like, what? This don't make no sense. Like, what can Helen Keller teach me? Like, you know what I'm saying? She was blind and she did all those things, but, you know, but Fred Hampton, he was trying to look out for the black people. Wow. How come you want to empower me with that? What is it about them not wanting to empower and teach young African American children? Like, what's the problem there?
It's a problem of representation. Yes. And it's the power of representation. You know, even for me, you know, my children being biracial, there's still you can get so accustomed to seeing only one side of the coin. You know, I know me and my daughter had the conversation last year, you know, during Black History Month. Hey, well, you know what they teach you, you know, this month, just, you know, you couldn't even get a big three, you know, Martin, Malcolm, and Rosa.
Right.
And you better get the truth about Malcolm.
Right. You know, and I'm thinking back and I'm like, has this been what it's come to? Because I remember when I was in school, we at least got that. Right? But now y'all didn't get none of that? She's like, no, we did Dr. King on his birthday. Okay, so the whole month of February, there was nothing. And obviously, you know, I know this, you know, that first falls on me as a parent, especially as a black parent, to educate my children about who they are, where they come from, their people, their history, their heritage, and their ancestors. It's just now it seems, and obviously you being an educator, you can speak to this a little bit more, that there is more of a shying away, that there's more of a, you know, turning away. Because I can even remember, you know, when I had teachers who weren't black that would, you know, try to teach us what their knowledge of black history. But now it seems like there's such a let's separate, you know, because you had the big talk, you know, last year about the critical race theory and all of those things. And it seemed like everything was pushed into that. So then it could be taken away. As a black educator, did you see that shift happening? What was your experience in, you know, trying to, you know, as you know, trying to empower and teach, you know, other African American children? I mean,
you know, when I first graduated from Langston, I noticed it was a problem with black people trying to teach kids about our history. Like, why can't I talk about this in class? You gonna make me switch my whole lesson plan up because I can't talk about slavery? You know what I'm saying? So first it was a problem for black people. So then, like, when the critical race theory thing, you know, and it's a lot of misconceptions about the critical race theory. Because the critical race theory, that is a graduate course at OU. So when they banned it, they just banned it out of graduate courses. You know, so but you can still kind of teach it from, you know, pre-K to 12th grade, but at a risk, you know. So when I first heard about it was last year in March, and I reached out to my superintendent because I'm like, I got to skip the principal. Like, I got to go straight to the source. And I was like, hey, I'm kind of scared because this is kind of like what I teach. This is, you know, that's not all I teach. Sure. But for sure, they're going to learn some, and they're going to write about some black history for sure. Right. Yeah. You know, and she was just like, don't worry about it. We'll explain everything. So Millwood has a lawyer, and the lawyer was telling me, like, hey, you know, don't worry about it. As long as you sticking to the Oklahoma standards, you'll be all right. And you got to change the whole Oklahoma standard curriculum, because there's some things in there about Black history too that they want us to teach.
Sure.
So it's like, what do y'all want us to do?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, I kind of seen this going, because I read 1984 by George Orwell.
Yep.
And he was talking about how, like, eventually they're going to change history. They're going to rewrite history.
Yes.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's going on, man. I'm going to have to write that down. The pen is mightier than the sword.
No, I mean, that saying has been around for so long, but I think now the thing that we see is that it's coming true. Yeah. Because things that, again, decades ago that were, I'm not going to say openly discussed, but, I don't know if teachers were afraid to talk about it, when you were in school, when I was in school, when you were in, going through, earlier school. But now it's just so, no, like, you hear about, I think it was down in Texas, where they're going to call slaves indentured servants. Like, no, you're taking away the entirety of what happened by trying to change what these people were, by calling them something that they weren't, because indentured servitude is totally different from slavery.
Right.
That's not. No.
Terms and language matter.
Man. Terms
and language matter, right? And this is why the issue with critical race theory is, for me, I'm sitting there thinking, like you said, it came from graduate level, right? And it is a collective of Black educated minds that wanted to explain the experience of being Black in America.
Sure.
Right? So for me, this is a theory. Now, if this is a theory, why is it causing so much angst outside of the community if it's just a theory?
Not even a fact.
Right. And this is the whole thing. Like, laws are being changed behind a theory.
Right.
Right? Like, we can't have this conversation. And what you hear across the news is the reason why critical race theory cannot be taught, not allowed to be taught, is so that these children of European descent, so that they're not having to have the conversation of what slavery actually is, and also that they're not made to feel ashamed or be held responsible for what their ancestors participated in centuries ago, right? But the reality is that the theory is not blaming these individuals who are alive currently. All the theory states is that you are the recipient, the benefactor of free labor for 400 plus years.
Very
right? True. It shines the light on the actual construct of the United States. That the majority of the laws here written had nothing to do with Black people.
Right.
And we're talking about Black children to their benefit. That had nothing to do, right? It shines a light on the fact that the doctrine of exclusion, which was written in Maryland, all the laws that were enacted for the Constitution and these amendments stem from that, which states that there is no Black person or Native person shall ever have the same rights or privileges of a white person in these United States. This is what we're talking about.
Right.
But you're upset because this truth, which is your law, and all laws will stem from that, is now brought to the forefront, and now it's but it's already written. It's already written.
True.
So what's the issue then?
I think I know I was on Facebook the other day, and there was this picture of this young Black child, and I'm going to assume it was sometime in the 50s or 60s, and she was being escorted to school by I believe FBI agents, and it was and on it said, if she was strong enough to go through it, your children are strong enough to learn about it.
Yep.
Right? Because like you said, we're not living in the time where kids are having to have police escorts into the school building just to go sit beside somebody of a different race or ethnicity. Right? But we are so afraid to teach that this is the actual history of our country.
Right.
When at some point in time, if you don't, is it because you want to repeat it?
That has to be the prevailing thought.
Right? Is it because now maybe the generation you see growing up, on the other side, maybe they don't want to adhere to how you acted. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not being able to indoctrinate them. Maybe they're questioning you. Well, why can't I hang out with Raheem? Mm-hmm. Why can't I hang out with Sarah?
Yep.
Why can't I go to their house?
Yeah.
Are you afraid that they might not, subscribe to the same doctrine that you're teaching anymore? Mm-hmm. So now you want to hide these things from them. And that, the thing for me, especially, in public education nowadays, is like you both said, it is so geared towards, let me just make you sit down and take this test. Teachers, of any race, aren't allowed to teach.
Right.
All they're allowed to teach is, I got to get you ready to take these standardized tests, and then outside of that, it's whatever. Yeah. And there's no preparation to go to college. So then when you get there, you have the ability to, well, which classes are you going to take? Hold on.
I get to choose?
You asked me questions. Hold on. What is this? Mm-hmm. How do you, as a black educator, Anthony, how do you, still within the confines of the parameters of your job, teach these things and then prepare, especially, young black students, to make that transition from high school to college?
Really, I just kind of turned my classroom into like a college course. Like, okay, I'm gonna treat you like young adults. I'm gonna treat y'all how they gonna treat y'all when y'all get out here. Mm-hmm. So no late work, no late assignments. I'm not accepting you coming to classroom acting a certain way. No, you're gonna listen while I'm talking. Mm-hmm. So it's just a respect factor that I look for. I just want to discipline things, because many young African Americans are not disciplined. Right. Right. We're not disciplined. Yeah. And that's facts. You need discipline in order to make it out. You need discipline. But some parents kind of condone their attitude, the way they live in, and I'm just like, okay, because most of my trouble last year. Because last year was my kind of first time teaching 11th and 12th grade. Okay. And the only problem I ran into last year was the parents. The parents didn't like the way I was conducting my class, because I was holding their kid accountable. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't come to my class and BS. You know what I'm saying? Because if you go to college, they not going to, you don't turn the work in, your mama can't call the professor. Right. Matter of fact, you got a job. Your mama can't call your supervisor. The supervisor like, what? You and your son or daughter can get out of here. Right. What do you think this is?
Those are facts.
So I hold them to the fire. I hold them accountable, and parents don't like that. Mm-hmm. And we talking about parents that look like us. Like, come on now, you supposed to be helping me. Like, we the last strand. Like, I believe Millwood is one of the last black schools, predominantly black schools in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So if we don't do something to these kids, then we setting them up for failure.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. How is it, in dealing with parents? What would be something you would like to see? Especially black parents, help you as an educator? Is it just from the discipline side, or what kind of things can we do?
Parents need to heal too. And they don't want to talk about that. I noticed that because I had, I got a lot of good kids who will take the conversations home. Sure. And when the parents get hold of the conversations that I'm having in my class, they kind of like degrade their own children. Yeah. They don't want me talking about, before we even get to what we about to talk about in class, how are you feeling mentally? Where's your heart? What's going on at home? Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and parents don't like their kids talking about that stuff in school. But hey, look, I got to be a therapist. I got to be a teacher, counselor.
Mm-hmm. You're doing it all.
Because it's like, before I can even put something on their brand, I got to make sure they're not in survival mode. Right. And Nipsey Hussle talk about survival mode. Yes. Like, it's hard to teach somebody who's in survival mode. Right. They just worrying about what they're going to eat. They worrying about they going to get home safely. So I got to think about those things when I'm introducing topics to them. You know what I'm saying? So parents need to heal. Parents need to read more. Parents need to do their own research.
Facts.
Because I don't see how I can give your child some in-depth research about a topic like because I'm gonna give you an example. Last year, a student was talking about going to OU. Okay. I said, before they start letting black kids go to OU, there was Langston, but I was kind of just playing with her, but she took that conversation home, like, my teacher said I shouldn't go to this white school, blase, blase. Like, I didn't say that, but forget it. I feel that way. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? So, she didn't want to do her history. She didn't want to look into it. She didn't even want to, she just looked at the fact that I talked bad about OU.
Right.
To her kid who wants to go to OU. And that kid didn't even go to OU. That's the funny thing. You know what I'm saying? So, parents need to heal. They need to read more. They need to research. And they need to, I feel like when it comes to their child's education, it's like a diamond, not diamond, but a pyramid.
Sure.
Like you got on one side, it's the parent. I'm on the other side, and the child is the foundation. So if we come together, we could help this child.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But parents don't look at it like that, man. You trying to fail my kid? No, I'm not. But not failing them is actually setting them up to
fail.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So
man, you didn't just wake up. Johnny needs an F today.
Yeah,
F
come on,
Johnny.
Come on.
I think I'll give Susie a D. Yeah, that sounds good. Because they should understand that reflects poorly on you as a teacher.
Right.
If the majority of your class is not making passing grades, obviously the school system isn't going to look at you and say, "Hey, man, we don't feel like you can get through to the kids."
Yeah.
Because nobody's learning anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like you said, Jesse and I, we are big proponents of making sure that, we as parents continue to educate ourselves, continue to read and model the behavior of learning.
Yes.
Because so often, if you didn't go on and go to college, the last book you read was when you were in high school.
Yeah.
And the last thing you actually learned was when you were in high school. Now, obviously, maybe you learned something, new for your job, but outside of that,
right.
When you're on YouTube, when you're on Facebook, when you're on Instagram, you're on there purely for entertainment. You're not on there talking about, oh, well, how can I build a rocket? How can I, do anything other than sit here and be lost in entertainment for the next 2 hours, right? And that is, especially for our people. And then we want to get mad at our child that loses, and doesn't put the value on being educated themselves. Yeah. Right. And then, it's funny that you say, what you said about, OU, when I remember I was watching this documentary on Netflix. It was when the people did the guy was running the school scam out of USC. He was changing people's grades in the admission scandal. Yeah. And one of the people that was on the documentary, they were like, there's really not a big difference in where you go to school. He was like, there's just not. He said, you have to understand that these things were just set so that money could be made at these universities.
Yes.
He was like, there's no difference from the USC to the East LA State. I'm just making one up. Yeah. But he's like, there's no difference. And many times, now, especially nowadays in the job world, are they really taking, into consideration where you went to school over just the fact that you have a degree?
Right.
So and that's the thing, and especially then when you go to the world of athletics, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, down there at Jackson State doing great things. Mm-hmm. He caught such hell for a kid that looks like him, that plays the position he played on both sides of the ball, wanting to go learn from the greatest person to ever play that position.
Right.
Oh, he had to pay him.
Right.
Because why didn't he choose in Alabama or his Deion's alma mater, Florida State, which golly, should have hired Coach Prime, Florida State.
Should have.
Anyways, wouldn't be losing every week. But he goes through all of that just because he's at a HBCU.
Right.
Because if he'd have been anywhere else, it really wouldn't have been that big a deal. And Jesse, I'll let you answer this. In now being on the other side, when you are going to think about that secondary education, is it going to be a conversation of look at the HBCU?
Definitely, because you want to go to a place that you're accepted and not just tolerated, man. I went to universities where tolerated, right. Clearly, I'm performing, academically, and I have somebody who's supposed to be mentoring my educational journey. Someone who's supposed to, be encouraging. Hey, you're in pursuit of this undergrad, and we're in the learning center now. Right. And this woman looks at me. She was enrolled at Oklahoma State University pursuing a doctorate in education, and so this lady, and we're at this quote unquote Christian university. She looks at me as I'm writing, and because I'm challenging, I'm challenging what she's saying, and she goes, well, listen, you aren't grad school material anyway, so it really doesn't even matter. You're just here to, play a little ball and, help our numbers.
To shut up and dribble.
Now, this is somebody who is supposed to be working at this Christian university. You're supposed to love the Lord, cuz. You're supposed to be over here like, yeah, go Jesus, we love everybody, all of this. But because my skin's darker than yours, you feel like it's okay that you have a green light to look at me and tell me, you ain't grad school material. When the reality is, my light was shining so brightly, you really couldn't understand. How do you know what you know when you really just, I'm in position to teach you.
Right.
So it made you a little nervous, right? So we rock on a couple years, and we walking in graduation. Guess who I get to walk by? This same lady.
Right.
Who, when she saw me, they called my name, coming across there, and she can put her head down. No, I walked right over there to her, stopped and looked at her.
Man, I'm so good to see you today.
Yeah. And kept right on moving.
I'll go ahead and take this degree.
Right? It's one of those things where it's like, do you want your child to be in an environment where they have to deal with that? Bro, that was like 2008.
Do you believe that white people are inherently racist?
Man, I believe that we all are. So the answer to the question is yes. Because we have to look at the term racist. What does that mean?
Master, the expert of your race.
Okay, that makes all of us racist, right? So when people want to get hyper defensive when the statement is made, do you believe? Yeah, because I am too. We all are prejudiced. I have a prejudice towards those who look like me. Why? Because my mama looked like me. Right. My grandmama looked like me. So that doesn't make me bad, sure. Right? The issue that we have, and we talk about it often, is that our community is the only community that's villainized for saying, hey man, you need to be around people who look like you. Right. They don't tell that to the Asian community, to the white community, to the Hispanic Latino community. True. They don't do that. Very true. And no one ever stops to think and ask, like, well, why is that? Because there's a lot of power in your unity. Very true. Right? And so at any point in time that we as a community decide that we're going to get together and do something, typically big things happen, right? And listen, it's documented in both paper, video, and audio recording that the government, from Lyndon B. Johnson on like Ronald Reagan, Carter, all of them have conversations saying, listen, we got to make sure that we keep the black community divided. These aren't my words. These individuals,
I didn't make this.
Right. These individuals had these conversations, and now they're releasing these tapes. Right. They're out here for everybody to look at. So no, it's not me. Oh, well, you hate white people. No, I don't. Not at all. We're talking about what is racist and what is prejudice. Right. That's it. I don't hate anybody. Now, conversely, can the opposite be said towards me? But I'm gonna leave that alone.
Very, very true. Very, very true. No, that's the thing, especially the thing with that is, we have to get to a place where we understand sometimes it's okay to be selfish. That it's okay for us as a people to want to empower each other. That it's okay for us. I shouldn't have an issue telling another black man, bro, you're doing great things. Yeah. Do your thing. And I shouldn't be ashamed to promote you and say, oh, right. Man, that brother Anthony is out there teaching. He's empowering young black kids. He's doing a great work. Man, we need to make sure we pour in and support him before I'll go support somebody else. Right? Right? But we get so nervous, we get so scared, we get so, just not wanting to be alienated that I'll be afraid to do that. And then when you get into, you see a lot of people that talk about, supporting black business and how that means you shouldn't ask for a discount, and things of that nature. But so often it's, oh man, why your price is so high? Oh yeah. Man, why are you charging so much? Oh, why are you charging $35 for a ticket? Well, you don't complain when you go over to the Warren for $22 a ticket and that Cisco food they feeding you. You're not mad at them, but you're mad at the young African American chef with his food truck because his prices may be a little bit more. Right. For one, if you just understand business, he's got to charge a little bit more. He's not the big chain. Right. But if we want to help him get there, I should gladly pay.
Yep.
You know, right? I should gladly sow in to this individual and not complain. I don't complain when I go, if you like Olive Garden, when you go to Olive Garden. You complain when you go to Rib Crib. It's not even good barbecue.
Right.
It's cooked in the electric smoker, which is nasty. So, anyways, I digress. So, Anthony, let me ask you this: What has been, you know, if there's been a highlight for you being a black educator, especially here in Oklahoma, right? Because I think it, you know, maybe it had been different, you know, for you if you were, you know, back in LA, or if you were in, you know, a state or even a city that was predominantly black. But what has been maybe a highlight for you in teaching, you know, and educating young black kids here?
Man, I think I'm gonna share 3 of them. One of them is getting banned in OKCPS, because that taught me, like, man, even your skin folk ain't your kin folk. And you know, that was a hard lesson, because I'm like, no, they not gonna do that to me, like, they not gonna do me like that. And they end up doing it. It's like, but I can't turn my back on them.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Right. So it's like, and then I got a forgiving heart. So it's just like, you know, I'm gonna understand. I'm gonna just move on. It is what it is. But they made me more powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I got banned from OKCPS, it took me 3 years to get back in it, because one of my brothers, he over poetry and chill. And he asked me if I could teach some poetry workshops to the kids in OKCPS. I said, I'm banned from there though. You're gonna have to see about getting that ban lift. He said, we're not even gonna worry about it. We just gonna move in. And that's what we did, like, you know, so, and they not gonna hire me because they still got me on the ban list, but I think that was a highlight, because it lets me know how dangerous I am. Like, they really don't want no strong black men in these schools really teaching their kids, because I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna take it there. You know, we're gonna talk about everything. Your child coming to school, calling girls bitches, especially if it's a young black girl. I'm like, bro, what's a bitch, bro? Let's talk about it. Right. Where you get this term from? And why? You know what I'm saying? Because that's one highlight, man. Watching the kids come from, you know, gang banging, you know, from selling drugs, from doing things like that, to like getting degrees. Like, bro, it's that story when I was at, because even though I got fired from Douglas, I had a stump team at Douglas, so I still kept going up there volunteering, because I really wanted to see them make it in life. And many of them got degrees. Many of them stopped selling drugs. Many of them just got families now. So that's the beauty of it, seeing how young black kids can come from nothing to something. So I think that's one of the major highlights. And then the third highlight is being part of this critical race theory case. Like, now I get to carve my name into the judicial system history books, you know what I'm saying? So those have been my top 3 highlights.
Okay, man, that's great. Jesse, before we get out of here, man, what I want you to share with the family is, as now, you know, being a black father, you know, what would you encourage other, you know, black parents to do, you know, for their children going through, if they have to be in the public school system, what would you encourage them to do?
Man, I encourage them to understand how it actually works. So you need to get with somebody like Brother Anthony, man. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Because if teaching isn't your thing, if you haven't been formally trained in it, then the reality is that you have a level of ignorance. Right? You just don't know. Right? Again, that's all the word means. You don't know. So it's our job to seek out what we don't know, because it's still our responsibility as parents, especially as black fathers, that we set the curriculum in our home. Right? And everything flows down from that. So I got to make sure I know. So if I don't know, listen, Anthony, how do I put this lesson plan together? Because I want to make sure it's reinforced what you're teaching. Right. Then I got some other things on my own that I want to make sure I teach. What's the most effective way for me to do this? We have to collaborate with one another. Right? We have to stop fearing and believing, you know, that negative narrative that we ain't supposed to work together, especially as black men. Yeah, we are. In order to get things back on track, to get them right, to make sure that, you know, when my child comes to your class, that their mind is clear, then you and I have to communicate. Like, what is it that you're trying to teach, and what tactics are you using to make sure that, hey, all you said is mental health. So I need to reach out to somebody who, mental health professional, right? So I can understand the language that he's coming from. So therefore, at home, again, it's about reinforcement and rhythm, right? This is the rhythm of education. This is the rhythm of learning. This is the rhythm of knowledge. So we got to make sure that we align ourselves with that. Like you said earlier, I got to be reading something. I have to tell, show, do. I should be leading the way. They should see me reading. right? They see me writing, all of that. Leading the way in terms of what it means to be educated and the pursuit of, because it never stops.
Right.
It should never stop, right? So just being sure that, we're fully invested. I think that's the best thing that we can do. Be fully invested, be fully active on a daily basis, right? Because even in the summertime, like most parents want to go, oh man, it's a break, so yeah, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
No, for me, like my mom didn't let me rest. I did more work in the summertime than I did during the school year, and it made the difference in my ability to think, to learn the language of the 1%, right? Because that's huge. Man. Dr. Eric Thomas talks about that all the time. Like, we go to the university not to be quote unquote integrated, but we go there to learn the language of the 1% so that we can actually understand these laws and the reasoning and all that that's going on in our society. Right. So how can we combat it? That's the only way, to learn the language. So definitely just being fully vested, fully involved, and being an active participant, in your child's life and in their educational process.
Family, what I want to leave you guys with is this: in doing all of these things to teach your children, to be there for them. Obviously, you work with their teachers and not against them. But let's make sure that we always have an encouraging word, that we speak to our children and wrap what we say in love. And it's gonna be so simple as how they start their day. Don't, because you get up late, don't go in there screaming at your child. Because now y'all rushing around and they got to eat breakfast in 2 minutes and they got to get dressed in 1 minute. Yeah. Because it already starts their day off on a negative vibration.
Man. Yeah, for sure.
You need to be an adult and wake up early, and then get your child in the routine and rhythm of getting up early enough to make sure that they have enough time to become cognizant and lucid, and then gather their thoughts as they're getting dressed. So therefore, when they get to school, their mind is ready to receive. Yeah. So then you're not getting called about Susie got in a fight at lunch. They done cussed out the teacher. They was doing all kinds of foolishness. And a lot of it stems from how they started their day. Right. And if you will go in there with a still soft voice, instead of one that's cussing them out and mad because you wasn't adult enough to turn off Netflix and go to sleep, and you don't set that standard for your children. Yeah. So please, 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 be the standard bearer for your child's education and start their day off on a positive note. Yeah. Family, we sure appreciate you guys for tuning in with us today. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to our Apple Podcast and Spotify. As always, we hope you guys listen, learn, and grow. We'll talk to y'all later.